Okay, good morning, everyone. Good morning, ma'am. Now we will present our task performance midterm. The group are required to present the contemporary foreign and economic policies of each country, which is the Colombia and Brazil. The questions made based on the research information of Bloom taxonomy and summary of the investigation. These are the group 5. Rillion Angel May, Mabel Crizel Ann, Meleton Denise Marie, Omandak Maria Rica, Postanes Rin Krisha, Kia Kian, Kikoy Lindilu, Rivera Giselle. Let's begin for the foreign policy of Colombia. Colombia's contemporary foreign policy focuses on the following key priorities: diversifying and strengthening international relations, consolidating institutions and policies, participating in international forums, offering cooperation and expertise, strengthening relations with Latin America and the Caribbean, enhancing engagement with Asia Pacific countries. So the Colombia's contemporary foreign policy focuses on democratic prosperity, a greater diversification of Colombian international relations shall be necessary both in the multilateral environment and in the search of new partners and strategic alliances within international scope. So democratic prosperity for all is grounded on three pillars, which is more employment, less poverty, and more security. So it aims to diversify and strengthen its international relations by fostering bilateral ties with new partners while maintaining relations by fostering strategic and traditional alliances. So Colombia's contemporary foreign policy focuses on enhancing integration with Latin America and the Caribbean in order to provide more trade, investment, and technological exchange opportunities, and also to identify political and economic and investment opportunities for Colombia in groups such as CEVETS, Colombia, Indonesia, Vietnam, Egypt, Turkey, and South Africa, and by making part of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. Also, South to South cooperation. International cooperation will continue to be consolidated as a foreign policy instrument that helps strengthen strategic access in order to achieve democratic prosperity and to build a new Colombia. Next.
For the economic policies of Colombia, first is the general framework. Colombia is a free market economy with major commercial and investment links to the United States transition from a highly regulated economic regime to an unrestricted access market that has been underway since 1990. Next is the exchange policy rate. Colombia has a floating exchange rate system operating on a free market basis and administered by the central bank. The central bank has determined a price band within which the daily quotation of pesos dollar price must move. The bank may intervene in the market buying or selling pesos to keep the currency value within the band. Each day, the banking superintendency report an interbank market rate or TRM based on commercial bank and financial corporation transaction. Next is the structural policies that has three subtopics, which is first the pricing policies. Colombia has price regulation related to some agricultural imports, and it also regulates or establishes prices. Next is the tax policies. Revenues derived from this income are used chiefly to finance the 4-year National Economic Development Plan or SALTO Social and the so-called war tax on producers of minerals and petroleum products is phased out. Regulatory policies. All foreign investment in petroleum exploration and development in Colombia must carried under a stringent profit sharing association contract between the investor and the state. Next slide. Next is the debt management policies. Colombia's debt management strategy is aimed at accessing new resources of credit in the external and domestic capital markets and on improving the debt profile of the country generally with the objective of providing priority financing for social programs and infrastructure improvements that are key elements of the National Development Plan. Next is the protection of U.S. intellectual property. Colombia has made significant improvement in its intellectual property rights protection, but does not yet appear to provide adequate and effective protection. Colombia is a member of World Intellectual Property Organization or WIPO. For patents and trademarks, Colombia requires registration and use of a trademark in Colombia to exercise trademark protection. Next is the copyright. Colombia's 1993 copyright law significantly increased penalties for copyright piracy, and record levels of seizures of pirated materials took place in 1994 and 1995. Next is the new technologies. Colombia has a modern copyright law which gives protection for computer software for 50 years and defines computer software as copyrightable subject matter but does not classify it as a literary work. Next is the worker right. The right of association, which provides for automatic recognition of unions that obtain at least three signatures from the potential members and that comply with a simple registration process at the Labor Ministry. Next is the right to organize and bargain collectively. The Constitution protects the right of workers to organize and engage in collective bargaining. Workers in larger firms and public services have been most successful in organizing, but these unionized workers represent only a small portion of the economically active population. Next is prohibition of forced and compulsory labor. The Constitution forbids slavery in any forms of forced or compulsory labor, and this prohibition is respected in practice. Minimum age for employment of children. The Constitution bans the employment of children under age of 14 in most jobs, and the Labor Code prohibits the granting of works permit to youths under the age of 18. This provision is respected in larger enterprises and in major cities. Next is acceptable conditions of work. The law provides for a standard 8-hour workday and 48-hour work week, but does not specifically require a weekly rest period of at least 24 hours. Legislation provides comprehensive protection of workers' occupational safety and health, but this standard are difficult to enforce in part due to the small number of labor ministry inspectors. And lastly, the right in sectors with U.S. investment. U.S. foreign direct investment is concentrated principally in the petroleum, coal mining, chemicals, and manufacturing industries. Workers' right conditions in those sectors tend to be superior to those prevailing elsewhere in the economy, owing to the large size and high degree of organization of the enterprises. Next.
So we were tasked to create questions based on the information we have previously provided using the Bloom's taxonomy. Here is our creation for Colombia's contemporary foreign policy and economic policy. The first question is how might Colombia's focus on South to South cooperation in Africa contribute to its long-term foreign policy objectives? So Colombia's focus on the South to South cooperation in Africa can contribute to its long-term foreign policy objectives by expanding its international reach, creating economic opportunities, addressing common challenges, and strengthening its diplomatic and strategic position on the global stage. It enables Colombia to play a more significant role in shaping the future of international relations. Evaluate the effectiveness of Colombia's foreign policy in promoting democratic prosperity and cooperation with other countries. So Colombia's foreign policy has made efforts to promote democratic prosperity and cooperation with other countries. Its key focus is on diversifying and strengthening international relations, consolidating institutions and policies, participating in international forums, offering cooperation and expertise, strengthening relations with Latin America and the Caribbean, and lastly, enhancing engagement with Asia Pacific countries. However, the effectiveness of these efforts is subject to various factors that includes the willingness of partner countries to participate. The next question, what are the potential political, economic, and investment opportunities for Colombia in strengthening relations with BRIC countries? So the political, economic, and investment opportunities for Colombia in strengthening relations with BRIC countries should be approached with a clear strategy that aligns with its long-term economic and political goals. Therefore, this alliance will create more opportunities to strengthen entrepreneurial and investment encounters. Fourth, what measures can the Colombian government take to improve enforcement of each intellectual property rights protection in the country? The Colombian government has already implemented regulation in patents and trademarks by requiring registration and use of a trademark for its protection. Copyright law also has increased policy for copyright piracy and infringement. It also suggests a protection for computer software, although some measures could be taken into account to address the gaps with the system by strengthening customs enforcement to prevent the importation of counterfeit or pirated goods, and implement measures to allow rights holders to register with customs authorities. Lastly, by increasing criminal penalties that violate such laws. Fifth, how did the tax reform bill passed in December 1995 impact Colombia's tax policies? So the Colombian Congress passed the Samper administration's tax reform bill along with various changes, with the most significant being the increase of the value added tax from 14 to 16%. Lastly, what type of exchange rate system does Colombia have? It is simply Colombia has a floating exchange rate system operating on a free market basis and administered by the central bank. Next, please. Next reporter, please.
And now for the summary of investigation of Colombia. Next slide, please. For the contemporary foreign policy, Colombia's foreign policy focuses on democratic prosperity and strengthening its relationship with other countries. It wants to create more jobs, reduce poverty, and improve security instead of just receiving aid. Colombia now offers cooperations to other countries. It aims to work closely with Latin America and Caribbean nations, improve relations with neighboring countries like Venezuela and Ecuador, and promote development in other regions. Colombia also wants to be more involved in regional organization and establish partnership with emerging economies. It is committed to international cooperation, especially with African countries. Overall, Colombia's foreign policy aims to bring prosperity and build strong connections with other nations. And now for the summary of economic policy of Colombia. Colombia has been changing its economic policies to become a free market economy. The country's central bank manages the exchange rate to keep it stable. Colombia has rules on prices for some agricultural products and control prices for things like gas and education. They also have tax reforms and strict contracts for foreign investment in oil. Colombia is working on managing its debt and improving its reputation for protecting intellectual property. They have laws to protect workers' rights, including the rights to form unions and bargain collectively. However, there are still challenges with enforcing minimum wage and safety standards. Overall, Colombia is making efforts to improve its economy and protect workers. Lastly, for the summary of questions made based on the research informations and Bloom's taxonomy, the investigation explores different aspects of Colombia's foreign policy and economic strategies. It discussed Colombia's focus on South to South cooperation in Africa and how it contributes to long term foreign policy objectives. The effectiveness of Colombia's foreign policy in promoting democratic prosperity and cooperation with other countries is evaluated. The potential political, economic, and investment opportunities for Colombia is strengthening relations with BRIC countries are analyzed. Measures to improve enforcement of intellectual property rights protection in Colombia are suggested. The impact of 1995 tax reform bill on Colombia's tax policies is examined. Lastly, the type of exchange rate system in Colombia is identified as a floating exchange rate. And that's all for the summary of investigation of Colombia. Next slide, please.
For Brazil contemporary foreign policy, many side approach mark Brazil contemporary foreign policy. The country prioritized economic diplomacy, forging and strengthening trade trades and investment relationship with significant partners such as the China, the United States, and the Europe Union. Brazil actively engaged in global forum, including the United Nations, seeking a more prominent international role. Environmental concern remains central, with commitments to combat deforestation in Amazon and address climate change. The country continues to participation in international climate agreement, such as the Paris Agreement, signaling the commitment to environmental sustainability. Regionally, Brazil aimed to maintain its leadership position in Latin America, participating in organizations like the Organization of American States and promoting cooperation and sustainability within the region. South-South cooperation with other developing nations in Latin America and Africa remain a priority, reflecting Brazil's commitment to fostering global development and mutual process. While during COVID-19 pandemic, Brazil engaged in vaccine diplomacy, producing and exporting COVID-19 vaccine to neighboring country, which was part of its broader global health and humanitarian efforts. Next, please.
Let's proceed to the Brazil economic policies. Brazil economic policies can vary over time due to changes in government, leadership, and economic conditions. So these are some key aspects of Brazil economic policy. First, we have here the inflation targeting. In Brazil, the central bank has typically used inflation targeting as a key monetary tool to maintain price stability. For the fiscal policy, Brazil has faced fiscal challenges, including a history of budget deficit. To address these issues, government have aimed to implement fiscal reforms and control spending. Next one is the trade policy. Brazil has traditionally supported trade liberalization, but it has also protected certain domestic industries. The country has been involved in various trade agreements and negotiations with global partners. For the infrastructure investment, the Brazilian government has recognized the need for infrastructure development to support economic growth. Initiatives that have been launched to improve transportation, energy, and other infrastructure sectors. For the Brazil Social Program, Brazil has implemented social programs such as Bolsa Familia to address income inequality and poverty. These programs provide financial assistance to low-income families. Foreign investment. Brazil has sought to attract foreign investment to boost economic growth. This includes policies to make it easier for foreign companies to invest in Brazil. And lastly, we have here the environmental policies. Brazil faces challenges related to deforestation and environmental protection to balance economic development and environmental sustainability. So the government policies have aimed to address these challenges. Next, please.
So we have made questions regarding Brazil's foreign policies and economic policies using Bloom's taxonomy. So under remember, question. Find the meaning of Brazil's political engagement on the global stage, including its participation in international forums and peacemaking missions. Answer. Brazil's political engagement on the global stage involves actively participating in international forums and peacemaking missions. This engagement serves multiple purposes, including shaping global governance, promoting peace and stability, and advocating for the interests of developing nations. Brazil's involvement in international organizations like the United Nations demonstrates its commitment to global affairs and its desire to increase its influence and voice on key issues. Brazil's participation in peacemaking missions, such as those in Haiti and the Democratic Republic of Congo, showcases its dedication to maintaining peace and security in conflict affected regions. The, Through these efforts, Brazil aims to contribute to global peace, foster dialogue, and cooperation among nations and advance its own national interests. Number two, understand. Question: can you write a brief outline of Brazil's commitment to environmental and climate policies and its impact on international relations? Answer: Brazil's commitment to environmental and climate policies has influenced its international relations. The country has prioritized protecting the Amazon rainforest, implementing measures to reduce deforestation and address climate change. Brazil's active participation in international climate agreements, such as the Paris Agreement, and its commitments to reduce greenhouse gas emissions have positioned it as a significant player in global climate initiatives. These policies have impacted Brazil's international standing as it is recognized for its dedication to environmental sustainability. Brazil has fostered partnerships and collaborations with other nations to promote sustainable development and combat climate change on the global scale. Number three, apply. Question: can you classify the concept of economic diplomacy and its significance in Brazil's foreign policy? Answer: economic diplomacy is a strategic approach that utilizes economic tools and strategies to achieve foreign policy goals. In the case of Brazil, economic diplomacy has a significant role in shaping its international relations. Brazil has placed emphasis on expanding trade and investment relationships with key partners such as China and the United States and the European Union, while also exploring opportunities in emerging markets. Through economic diplomacy, Brazil has been able to strengthen economic ties, bolster exports, attract foreign investment, and enhance its global influence. By pursuing economic diplomacy, Brazil aims to advance its national interests, foster economic growth, and elevate its position in the global economy. Number four, analyze. Question: what is the underlying theme of the role of Brazil in international efforts to combat climate change and propose policy measures to strengthen its commitments? Answer: Brazil's role in international climate change efforts centers around the recognition of environmental sustainability and the necessity of collective action. The country acknowledges the importance of addressing climate change's impact on the environment, economy, and society. Brazil has implemented measures to combat deforestation, encourage renewable energy adoption, and mitigate greenhouse gas emissions. These actions align with the global initiatives to combat climate change and safeguard the planet. By proposing policy measures and reinforcing its commitments, Brazil aims to contribute to global climate action, foster sustainable development, and preserve its natural resources for future generations. Number five, evaluate. Question: what do you think of the role of BRICS and South cooperation in shaping Brazil's foreign policy objectives? Answer: BRICS, namely Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, and South cooperation have significantly influenced Brazil's foreign policy objectives. Brazil actively engages with other BRICS countries to promote economic and political cooperation, addressing issues such as economic development, trade, and global governance. Additionally, Brazil places importance on South South cooperation, which involves collaboration among developing nations. It seeks to strengthen ties with African and Latin American countries, fostering economic partnerships, knowledge sharing, and supporting development initiatives. BRICS and South cooperation platforms have enabled Brazil to enhance its global influence, advocate for the interests of developing nations, and facilitate cooperation among countries facing similar challenges and aspirations. Number six, create. Question: can you design a comprehensive strategy for Brazil to enhance its regional influence and cooperation in Latin America? First, strengthening regional organizations. Brazil should actively engage in regional organizations like Organization of America and the Union of South American Nations to promote cooperation, address common challenges, and strengthen regional integration. Diplomatic outreach. Brazil should engage in diplomatic efforts to build and strengthen relationships with other countries in the region. This includes fostering dialogue, promoting mutual understanding, and addressing shared concerns. Next slide, please. So, for the economic policies, remember question: what questions would you ask of the social and economic impact of the social programs like Bolsa Familia in Brazil and propose potential improvements or modifications? The questions we would ask are: first, what is the overall effect of Bolsa Familia on poverty reduction and income inequality in Brazil? Second, how has Bolsa Familia influenced the expansion of health and education services in the country? Third, what specific improvements in nutrition outcomes have been observed due to Bolsa Familia? Number two, understand. Question: can you write in your own word the social and economic impact of social programs like Bolsa Familia in Brazil and propose potential improvements or modifications? Answer: Bolsa Familia, a social program in Brazil, has had a significant impact on both social and economic fronts. It has successfully reduced poverty and income inequality in the country while also promoting the utilization of health and education services. The program has demonstrated positive effects on nutritional outcomes as well. To enhance its effectiveness, it is crucial to address implementation challenges and limitations. This may involve improving beneficiary targeting to ensure the program reaches those most in need and making necessary adjustments to better achieve its goals. Number three, apply. Question: propose policy measures to enhance the balance between economic development and environmental protection in Brazil, considering the challenges of deforestation and sustainability. Answer: these are the policy measures we will propose. First, strengthen regulations and enforcement mechanism to combat deforestation and promote sustainable land use practices. Second, encourage and the adoption of sustainable agricultural practices to reduce the environmental impact of farming activities. Third, invest in energy sources, and promote energy efficiency measures to reduce reliance on fossil fuels and mitigate climate change. Fourth, support the development of green technologies and industries to promote sustainable economic growth. Number four, analyze. Question: compare and contrast Brazil's approach to trade liberalization with its efforts to protect specific domestic industries. Answer: Brazil has historically favored the trade liberaliza- liberaliz- liberalization, advocating for the reduction of trade barriers and the advancement of free trade. However, the country has also employed protective measures to safeguard specific domestic industries. These measures aim to protect national interests, stimulate local production, and ensure the competitiveness of domestic industries in the global market. Protectionist measures may encompass tariffs, quotas, and subsidies to support domestic industries and shield them from international competition. Fifth, evaluate. Question: do you think that the role of foreign investment in Brazil's economic growth and development a good thing or a bad thing? Answer: foreign investment plays a positive role in Brazil's economic growth and development. It brings capital, technology, and expertise contributing to economic expansion, job opportunities, and industrial development. Foreign investment also supports international trade and fosters economic integration with other nations. However, it is crucial to regulate foreign investment to safeguard national interests and maintain control over strategic sectors of the economy, preventing exploitation and maintaining sovereignty. Balancing the benefits of the investment with the need of regulation is essential for Brazil's sustainable economic development. Last, create. Question: can you develop a proposal which would predict the potential long term implications of Brazil's inflation targeting strategy on its overall economic stability and growth? Answer: This analysis should include the following steps. First, evaluate the effectiveness of the current inflation targeting framework in maintaining price stability and controlling inflation. Second is to assess the impact of inflation targeting the macroeconomic variables such as interest rates, exchange rates, and investment levels. Third and last, analyze the relationship between inflation targeting and economic growth, considering factors such as consumer confidence, business investment, and productivity. Next.
So next is the summary of investigation. To sum up, Brazil's foreign policy is influenced by domestic and international factors. It prioritizes economic diplomacy by expanding trade and investment relationships with major trading partners like China, the United States, and the European Union. Brazil is an active member of the BRICS group focusing on South-South cooperation. Its approach to environmental and climate policy includes commitments to reduce deforestation and combat climate change. It actively participates in international politics through United Nations and peacekeeping missions. It also maintains regional influence by participating in regional organizations like the Organization of American States. Summary of economic policies in Brazil. So Brazil's economic policies are influenced by various strategies, including inflation, targeting through the central bank, fiscal management, trade liberalization, infrastructure investment, and social programs. The central bank aims to maintain price stability while fiscal reforms and budget deficit management are implemented. Trade liberalization is supported while domestic industries are protected. Infrastructure development is prioritized with initiatives enhancing transportation and energy sectors. Social programs like Bolsa Familia provide financial assistance to low-income families. Foreign investment is attracted and environmental policies aim to balance economic development with environmental sustainability. Brazil's policies can change over time due to the changes in government leadership and economic conditions. Next, next slide. So, for the summary of the questions made based on the research information and Bloom's taxonomy. In contemporary foreign, Brazil's political engagement on the global stage includes participation in international forums and peacekeeping missions, promoting peace and stability, and advocating for developing nations. Its commitment to environmental and climate policies, such as the Amazon rainforest and the Paris Agreement, has impacted its international standing. Brazil's economic diplomacy has strengthened its global influence, focusing on expanding trade and investment relationships with key partners. It also emphasized South-South cooperation, fostering economic partnerships and knowledge sharing among developing nations. To enhance regional influence and cooperation in Latin America, Brazil should strengthen regional organization and engage in diplomatic outreach. For economic policies, Bolsa Familia, a social program in Brazil, has significantly reduced poverty and income inequality, influence health and education expansion, and improve nutrition outcomes. To enhance its effectiveness, policy measures should be strengthened to combat deforestation, promote sustainable agriculture, invest in renewable energy, and support green technologies. Brazil also support trade liberalization and protect domestic industries through protectionist measures. Balancing foreign investment with regulation is crucial for sustainable economic development. And that's all for the Group 5 reporting. Thank you, and once again, mabuhay.